The door closes after a difficult conversation. On one side, quiet begins to lower the pressure. On the other, someone is left wondering whether the relationship still exists. The same closed door can represent recovery, escape, or punishment. The difference is not visible from the hallway, and its real cost appears only when the door opens again. That later moment is the useful evidence. Recovery makes contact more possible, while shutdown makes the same doorway feel even harder to cross. People often ask, how long is too long to be alone? Duration matters less than function. An evening can restore choice, while a shorter silence can deepen a shutdown. The better question is what the distance is doing, helping you return to yourself, helping you avoid reality, or making someone else feel the uncertainty you cannot tolerate. A clock can measure absence, but it cannot measure whether attention, language, and willingness are returning inside the person who stepped away. Restorative space usually moves something. Breathing becomes slower. Thoughts separate. Your body releases its defensive posture. You regain the ability to choose words instead of firing or freezing. Space is serving regulation when it increases your capacity to return with more clarity than you had when you left. Even a small game counts. One less defensive sentence, one clearer need, or enough steadiness to hear what the other person meant. Shutdown often feels less spacious. The room may be quiet, but the mind remains locked on the threat. You replay the exchange, numb every feeling, scroll without absorbing anything, or build a case for never speaking again. The silence removes contact without restoring choice. This is why silence can look restful in a photograph while feeling crowded from the inside. The body is still braced for impact. Alone time can feel peaceful when you chose it, and trapped when it happened through rejection, fear, or collapse. Agency does not make every quiet moment pleasant, but it changes the posture. Chosen space says, I am stepping back for a reason. Shutdown says, I cannot imagine another available move. The distinction protects autonomy without romanticizing disappearance. Choice becomes visible through what you can do after the quiet, not through the quiet alone. Space works best when requested before overload becomes total. Notice the first signals. Speech becomes effortful. Ordinary questions sound invasive. Shoulders rise, or the urge to say something destructive appears. Those signals are not moral failures. They are timing information. Catching the signal early also preserves dignity. You can pause before your only options feel like attack, collapse, or a total cutoff. A useful pause can be named in one sentence. I want to continue this, but I cannot do it well right now. I need time to settle. The sentence protects two realities at once, your limit and the other person's need to know what the distance means. It does not need polished therapy language. A plain sentence is often safer because both people can remember what was actually promised. When possible, add a realistic point of return. I will check back tomorrow, or I need the evening and will message after breakfast. The exact timing is less important than honest structure. A return path keeps quiet from becoming an indefinite emotional waiting room. Structure lowers the amount of guessing outside the door and lowers the amount of guilt waiting for you inside it. If you cannot promise tomorrow, do not promise it merely to stop discomfort. Say you need to check your capacity and we'll update them. A false return time turns recovery into another countdown and teaches the other person that your reassurance cannot be trusted. An honest update may disappoint someone, yet it is more trustworthy than reassurance borrowed from a capacity you do not actually have. Silence becomes harmful when uncertainty is used to force pursuit, apology, or surrender. The goal is no longer recovery. It is control through absence. Quiet people are often wrongly accused of this, so the distinction matters. Needing space is not the same as making someone chase you to prove they care. Control is revealed by the desired outcome. Recovery seeks enough space to function. Leverage seeks a reaction from the person left outside. Being pursued after withdrawal may briefly feel like proof of importance, but it rewards a painful system. One person disappears to feel wanted, the other panics to restore contact. Both become dependent on uncertainty instead of learning how to request reassurance directly. Direct reassurance can feel less dramatic than being chased, but it removes the fear that has been doing the emotional work for both people. You may request space comfortably with one person and shut down around another. That difference can reflect what you expect to happen next. Respect creates room for language. Interrogation, ridicule, or repeated pressure can make even a clear boundary feel unsafe to voice. The same nervous system can be articulate in one relationship and wordless in another, so context deserves examination before character receives blame. If a person punishes every boundary, the solution is not a more elegant pause sentence. Firmer distance and appropriate support may be necessary. Communication tools help only where there is enough respect for communication to matter. Safety planning may include distance, trusted support, or professional resources. No communication script should be used to keep someone inside an unsafe exchange. After restorative space, some capacity returns. You may still disagree, but you can locate your values, hear another perspective, or make a decision. After shutdown, the world often becomes narrower. Contact feels more impossible, and silence needs more silence to maintain itself. Capacity is not agreement. You can return still upset and still be regulated enough to speak without turning the disagreement into a threat. Peace has texture. Attention returns to the room. Appetite or curiosity reappears, and your body feels more inhabitable. Numbness feels blank but vigilant. Neither experience makes you bad. Naming the difference helps you choose whether to keep resting or gently reconnect with life. Look for small signs of orientation, noticing temperature, finishing a meal, remembering an ordinary task, or feeling interest in something beyond the conflict. If the entire pause is spent rehearsing accusations, you have left the conversation physically, but not psychologically. Try an activity that changes the channel: walking, showering, preparing food, or resting without incoming information. The goal is not distraction forever. It is enough settling to think again. A change in activity gives the mind new sensory information. It interrupts the false impression that the argument is the entire world available right now. You do not need to use quiet time to build the perfect winning argument. A return can begin with observation. I got overwhelmed and stopped processing what you were saying. That is more useful than arriving with a prosecution brief that extends the original conflict. Winning language often keeps the body in combat. Descriptive language gives both people a fact they can work with instead of another accusation to defeat. Coming back can be modest. I am ready to talk for a while. I still need a slower pace. I do not have a final answer, but I can listen now. The goal is not instant resolution. It is restoring contact without abandoning the regulation you gained. A 10-minute return can be real contact. Limited availability stated clearly is more useful than waiting for a perfectly open emotional state. If your silence frightened or confused someone, acknowledge that impact without apologizing for needing space. You can say, "I needed the pause, and I see that I left you guessing. Next time, I will name it sooner." Boundary and responsibility can occupy the same sentence. This kind of accountability does not cancel the boundary. It repairs the avoidable confusion created around a boundary that was still necessary. Sometimes, space reveals that a conversation or relationship cannot continue. Then, clarity is kinder than repeated extensions of silence. You can communicate the decision at the safest level available. A return path can lead to closure, not only reunion. Closure also deserves directness. Repeatedly postponing a known decision converts uncertainty into a burden the other person cannot meaningfully respond to. If you regularly need decompression, schedule it before conflict creates it. A quiet hour after work, a low-contact morning, or an evening without plans reduces the chance that recovery must be taken through abrupt disappearance. Predictable solitude makes recovery ordinary rather than alarming. The people around you no longer have to interpret every quiet interval as an emergency. Trusted people can learn that your quiet is not rejection when you make the pattern visible. Tell them what overload looks like, what kind of pause helps, and how you normally return. Predictability transforms mystery into a shared map. A shared map can include what not to do, repeated calls, surprise visits, or demanding a complete explanation before your thinking is returned. Recovery time does not have to produce insight, productivity, or a perfectly calm mood. Its value may be that no one needs an answer from you. The test is not whether you optimized the pause. It is whether choice and capacity begin to come back. Unproductive rest can still be honest rest. The measure is renewed agency, not whether the quiet produced a revelation worthy of reporting. Before returning to the hardest conversation, reconnect in a smaller way. Drink water, answer one safe message, step outside, or name what you know. Reentry reminds the mind that contact has degrees. It is not a switch between total exposure and total isolation. Choose the smallest step that proves the social world is still accessible. Reentry should widen the corridor, not throw you back into the loudest room. If every conflict ends in days of silence, look beyond the individual incident. The pattern itself now deserves attention. What triggers the cutoff, what maintains it, and what would a safer exit look like? Repeated shutdown is not solved by repeatedly waiting for it to pass. Patterns deserve curiosity and consequences at the same time. Understanding why a cutoff happens does not require everyone else to accept it indefinitely. The person waiting may also decide what uncertainty they can tolerate. Your need for space is real. Their need for basic reliability is real too. Mutual respect does not guarantee identical preferences. It creates enough truth for both people to choose. Reliability is not unlimited access. It is enough information for another adult to decide what they can participate in without living on standby. The real cost of the closed door was not the hour spent alone. It was returning without language and teaching both people that every conflict might erase the relationship. The room restored your body, but the unexplained doorway kept the system unsafe. Without that language, the door becomes a recurring threat, even when the room behind it genuinely helped you recover. Needing space moves you toward renewed choice. Shutting down makes choice smaller. A healthy pause names what it can, protects real recovery, and returns with honesty. Quiet is not the problem. The question is whether it helps you come back to yourself and, when appropriate, back into connection. The most restorative quiet leaves you with more honest options than you had before. That is the difference a hallway cannot show, but a return